am Dr. Joan Coleman, and the Exchange is exciting.
I'm Denise Cavalier. The Exchange is real.
I'm Carolyn Poiker. The Exchange is empowering.
I'm Donna Hutchinson. The Exchange is thought-provoking.
The Exchange, a Let Me Be Me podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Exchange. All right. Who apologizes? Do you apologize? Am I wrong? Are you wrong? Wait. When we come back, we'll talk about it. But first, we got to introduce the ladies. Ladies, introduce yourselves.
Donna Hutchinson.
Carolyn Poiker.
Denise Cavalier.
And I am Dr. Joan Coleman, and this is The Exchange, a Let Me Be Me podcast. And listen, our mission is to uplift, to encourage, to affirm, to inspire, and to motivate someone today. So tell your friends to listen. We are on CNJN TV. We are on YouTube. We are on all social media platforms. Look for us. And again, this is The Exchange. Today, we are talking about apologies. And I have a quote here. When you realize you've made a mistake, make amends immediately. How many of us have apologized for something we have done or not? Have you apologized?
Joan, you've been on the receiving end of that. Yes. And how many times did I apologize to you? Like at least 47 times. Yeah. I can't. I have to get it out and apologize. Yeah. So that was even just a recent occurrence. And I couldn't stop apologizing to Dr. Joan.
And I understand because sometimes, for instance, Donna, when you give her too much, she kind of she kind of freaks out a little bit. And so, and she let us flow. It's not bad. It's not like she's saying anything angry or anything. It's just her emotions coming out. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to do what you don't want to do. And I'm fine,
I'm so sorry. I'm still sorry. I'm really sorry. That wasn't me. I was just overwhelmed. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh,
After she thinks about it, she's like, okay, I'm back now, you know, and it's all good. So, ladies, how do you act if someone makes the mistake of being rude, or is it a mistake or not? If someone is being rude, or if it's somebody like Donna who's like, oh, her emotions come out and she has to protect herself in that moment until she figures it out in her head. How do you handle that when somebody comes to you like that? Denise, while Carolyn's thinking.
I don't know. I try to give people time, to regroup. So like Donna was saying, she needs time sometimes to figure out, get her sea legs again and then figure it out. So I think giving people the time to sort of look over. I mean, our immediate reaction when somebody is rude is like, we're waiting for some kind of an apology, but that doesn't always come quick. And that's true with me as well. Sometimes I need to mull things over in my head and think about my own behavior before I can go back and apologize and be successful in it.
Yeah, because sometimes when somebody is rude to you and you jump back at them, and then you got to go home and you think about me. I'm like, you rude. And I'm like, you're blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, blah, 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 blah. And then I go home and I'm like, oh gosh, why did I let them drag me into that? And then, sometimes you end up apologizing. Sometimes you don't. You ever find that? Talk about it.
Well, I want to say that when I'm in that situation where somebody's been rude to me, I think most of the time can put myself there and be like, I know I've done the wrong thing. So I can be, patient. Now I forget the second half of what you said. But I think I want to just tell my apology story because this happened kind of recently and it's a juicy one. Right. So imagine a Zoom meeting with lots of different, maybe only 15 people, but very different people in very different walks of life, ages, stages, whatever. And this one lady goes off about how we should all be pulling our kids out of school because the schools aren't whatever. And oh man, she triggered me so much. First of all, she doesn't have school-age children. She has preschoolers. And she just has no idea what she's talking about. And I just lost it. And I literally raised my voice. Told her she had no clue what she was talking about. And I was tired of people who didn't have school-age children, who didn't have high school-age children, who didn't have special needs children, telling all of us what we should be doing. Well, changed the whole meeting. A whole bunch of people were offended. And I'm like the facilitator. So, I mean, just ugly, really ugly. right away I texted my friend who I facilitate with, and I said, I will apologize directly when the meeting's over. This is, me. And I did. I apologized in writing with how I handled it, not with what I said, because she was totally wrong.
Right.
Well, she went back 4-page long email telling me I was the worst person in the world. She was never going to be involved in our organization. And I wrote back one line and I just said, I'm praying for you. This is a really tough time we're all in. We both have husbands who are about to lose their jobs for this ridiculous stuff that's going on. I'm sorry you can't see my point, And 4 months later, she wrote back and she was like, you were right. So she did. She eventually could accept it. It took her months and months and months. I think the common ground of, hey, we're both in a tough situation. But I had to fess up. What I said wasn't necessarily the problem. How I reacted, terrible. It was so inappropriate, wildly inappropriate. But the bigger part of the story that's interesting, I apologized to everybody who had been at the meeting. And I had a whole bunch of people write back and said, you shouldn't have apologized. You didn't do anything wrong. And I had one person call me and say, I'm not sure I want to come to these meetings anymore. We all had a discussion about you, and we think you're so outbursty. I don't know what the word is. And, you really need to work on yourself.
Ooh.
And I thought, isn't this interesting? Like, everybody was there, but everybody sort of, experienced it different.
So it was a mixed group of mixed emotions, right? And sometimes when you get like that and you're standing in your truth, you tend to go for it, even if you're right, even if you're wrong, you still go for it. But the mind to apologize after, that's something that a lot of people don't have. Do you know what I'm saying, Donna? How do you feel about that?
This is something else I feel like has come a long way in time. I feel like for so long people probably weren't willing to apologize, or maybe I'm just projecting for myself. I feel like it's so much easier for me to just apologize now, and again, just like the lying in the previous episode we talked about, just clearing the energy and not having it linger. So yeah, it's just so much easier again. And being honest and then apologizing.
Be honest and then apologize. But to avoid problems, so we don't have to apologize, we don't do that, right? Talk about it.
I would like to be more preventative. I tend to live in my emotions. I'm an emotional person. If somebody triggers me and I feel upset and they're saying something that's hurt me, I shoot first and I ask questions later. So I'm trying to learn from that and trying to be more patient. So when somebody says something hurtful or that I perceive as hurtful, that I don't react right away, because like you guys have said on other topics as well, then you have to double back. And, now you owe an apology because your reaction was just blown out. But yeah, I'm a shoot first, ask questions later person. And so I do need work on myself. I need to work on just having patience, hearing people, and trying to understand their perspective in the moment, and then maybe coming back later with a response. So yeah,
that's true. And you know what? You never know too when you have offended somebody. How do you know when you have offended somebody? Like if you would have said what you said without the high voice, would they have been offended, or would they be like, oh, she makes sense? So it depends on the tone and the voice you use when you're talking about something. But how do you know when you offend somebody?
This is funny you're bringing this up. It calls a story recently where I said something which I thought in my head was wildly out of line. And I'm sitting there now, I'm ruminating about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. That was so, all the internal turmoil. And at the end of the event where I pulled my friend aside and I was like, I'm so sorry I said this. She's like, I didn't even give it a second thought. So think of all the churning I did. And if I hadn't had the moment where I pulled her aside and was like, I'm really sorry, and her validate that there was nothing to be sorry for in that particular circumstance, how much I would have carried home with me.
Yeah.
I would have just constantly been like, oh my God, every time I thought of it, I would have been just an internal cringe. So that just helps so much, just get clarity on everything. And even if she had been offended, that would have cleared a whole bunch of stuff as well. So it helps a lot.
It does. And you know what? I'm the same way. I think about it and I think about it and I live in it and I'm like, and I'm like, the other person's probably flying a kite, having a ball. But I'm just that kind of person. I tend to think. And there was an incident with a friend that we had some issues. And so we hadn't spoken to each other. And then I was like, you know what, Joan? Talk about it, probably get some closure, see where you are. So I went and had the discussion, so how do you feel? How's things going? Things are good. And eventually it's like, so where do you see this friendship?
Mhm.
And it was more like, I don't have time to be your friend, type of thing. So then I was like, okay, but I was fine with that. I apologized, forgive me, we apologize, whatever. And then, but it was like, I don't have time to be your friend, I'm busy. So now I know. So apologies have a way of even turning into the truth. Okay, this is how you feel about that. So it's good to apologize, but you just never know when you offended somebody. So it's good to have the discussion.
Yeah, and then
It's good to have the discussion.
You cleaned your side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And if somebody wants to hold on to it, that's one thing. But if you feel like you've cleared it and you were honestly, genuinely apologetic,
Right.
that's a new ball game for you. That's forgiveness for you.
Yeah. Clean your side of the street.
I like that. Donna.
Yeah, that
I
was
like
good.
that.
That's good. So apologies take a lot of responsibilities, right?
Mhm.
So do you find that it's easy for you to apologize, or is it hard? Is it hard for you to apologize? Especially if you know you're right. I'm right. I know I'm right. But do you apologize? Do you suffer? I say, this is the way I say it. Do you suffer the right for the wrong?
It used to be hard. It's not anymore, which is
No.
interesting. It
Even
used to
if
be
you're
harder.
right, even if you are 100% correct.
Oh,
Why
that's a
are
different
you
subject.
apologizing if you're right? Maybe I'm not understanding. Tell me.
Because the person feels some kind of way, they're offended, they
Oh,
feel like
okay.
you're not right. They feel like you're not
Okay.
right. So you suffer the right for the wrong. In order to keep the peace, you do it to, so you could be, so they could think they're right and you could be okay.
Yeah, then maybe just move on. Again, it
Yeah.
comes back to peace for yourself. Sometimes it's just like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it? They could be as mad or think whatever they want. You can't change that.
Yeah.
All you can do is change you. So what can you bring?
But
for
some
yourself
people
here?
are just like, I'm right. I'm not apologizing for being right. But if you want peace and if you want to keep your friendship, if you want to keep like peace wherever you are with that person, do you apologize? Do
I
you
do.
say
I would.
you would?
I don't think I have that much trouble apologizing. I'm not sure I always know if I've offended people. I think if people stop answering your calls and texts, that could be a hint.
But what if you're right?
I think I don't know if it's worth it. Just say, I'm so sorry. I mean, could you do something like, hey, I'm so sorry that what I did, upset you so much. I didn't, that's not what I intended. I mean, you do it in a way that you're not, totally saying, oh my God, I'm this terrible person. You're just saying, what I did didn't work for you.
Oh, so you're not going to say, listen, I'm right. I know I'm right. But, since you don't see it that way, I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't think
that
that
you don't believe that I'm right.
I don't think that tactic is going to be very fruitful for most. But, I feel that I probably overcompensate in apologies because I overthink like
Yeah.
others. And I like a light backpack, clean side of the street, peace. Like that to me is a priority. And so I'm going to just, I'm going to apologize because I want peace for everybody.
Mhm.
However, people that are repeatedly are doing something that's offensive and obviously not taking responsibility for their actions, I might sort of back off on the apologies for a little bit because it really needs to, resonate with them that there's something going on here. And if I have to constantly overcompensate with an apology, then maybe there's something going on.
Yeah,
So,
if you gotta constantly apologize, yeah, check
Yes.
it out,
Yeah.
right? Because I am this way. If I know I'm wrong, and if you say something like, let me use my husband as example.
Oh,
He's
Lewis.
good on facts. He's like, this happened in 1982, and I'm like, no, it's 1983, and he'll go to his phone. I did a study. He loves to say, I do a study. I did a study on such and such, and this is what it shows, right? So I'm like, no, I don't remember it that way. That's not how it went. Da 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 da. And he would look it up, and he would be right. Immediately apologize. So not even with just him, whoever it is, if they prove me wrong, I apologize immediately. Are you an immediate apologizer?
Yes, and Scott's always shocked, or he's always like in a different and I'm like, you think I have a problem apologizing? I don't. I fully will admit I'm wrong. I have no problem with it. Why are you shocked? Like, but that because I think he probably has a little trouble apologizing when he's incorrect. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus, Scott.
I don't think my husband knows how to apologize sometimes. I don't think he does.
No.
He doesn't. I think that's kind of a man thing, though.
Do you bring it up? Do you like, you owe me an apology?
Oh, all the time. And he'll dig in. Oh, but this and but that. And I did it because of this. And he just, he doesn't ever really, apologize. But I even went to him yesterday and I was like, say I told you so. And he's like, what? And I said, say I told you so. He's like, fine, I told you so. He goes, what about this time? And I said, you were totally right about this. And I was wrong. And, he was just cracking up. But he was like, I'm always right. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
It's so funny. It's the same thing with my husband. And I use him as an example because he will stick to a story. He will stick to a story. And my kids and I'll be like, he pulling, right? Right? And they're like, come on, Dad. Come on. Come on, Dad. And, eventually he'll apologize. But he doesn't have a problem apologizing if he's wrong. How about you, Carolyn? Your kids, your
I
daughters?
don't think it's a man thing because I certainly know females that have a really hard time with, and I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's just sort of admitting your vulnerability. Some people, I think it's really hard because then you're letting down sort of a protective, shell. So I think for some people it's that you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable when you can say you're wrong. So I don't think it's necessarily a male thing. I think a lot of it's related to our personality. Some people are just a little more stubborn and, will hang on. And I can be stubborn, but apologies, I don't like carrying anything around. I'm going to let it go as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a good thing because sometimes, like you were saying earlier, you go to bed with it on your mind. You're thinking about it. Okay, what did I say? How did I say it? And I inspect every part of my action throughout a day. I just do it. And my husband comes to bed like 2 hours later. You're still up, and I need to learn how to shut it off. But I am an inspector. I'm like, did I say the right thing? Was I kind? Was I thoughtful? Did I hurt somebody? And if I find that I did, I will call and apologize. I'm sorry for what I say. I didn't mean anything. Do you guys do that? Is it a thing that you just like inspect yourself and all that?
As much as I hate to admit it, of all the yoga and the meditation and everything else I do and preaching about let it go, I struggle. Yeah, I definitely struggle with going over things in my mind of things I said to people and stuff like that. That's human nature, maybe. Yeah.
Because we want to be right. We want to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Oh, we do. But I think what's funny about me is I feel like my memory is not as good as it used to be. So like I know I went over something that happened last week for like 4 hours one day. I was like, oh my God, let it go. Can't remember now what it was. So obviously it wasn't that important. But absolutely. Things will play. Oh, I should have handled that differently, But I think too, I find I think I apologize too much. So I think sometimes I'm trying to hold back a little. And I have one situation where I feel like this one person is like expecting apologies, and is always mad. And I'm like, I've never had a friend who's like mad at me so much. I'm like, gosh, this is just weird. I'm kind of like it's making me reevaluate the friendship. Do I really want to be friends with this person? But I think also if I'm offended, and people aren't coming to me for an apology, it's because they have no idea. They have no idea. So I think we sometimes think we offended people. I don't know.
Well,
It's
do you
hard.
walk around in offense if they offended you, right? And they have no idea. You don't say anything. You just hold it. You just hold it
Again, I think
inside.
it depends on the person. This one person I'm thinking of right now, like they're a friend, but it's like, to me, I feel like I've just seen her true colors, and I'm just like, she's just not right for me now. So it's like, again, see her at things, but it's like I'm not seeking her out because I'm just sort of tired of it.
Right, right. But you don't walk in offense, right? You don't like hold on. Do you guys hold on to somebody's mistake? Like they said something, they hurt your feelings, but they didn't even think to apologize. You know how we stay up and think, oh, did I say the right thing? They just went to sleep. Woke up the next day like, ah. Do you go to them and say, you kind of offended me, or do you just keep it to yourself?
I'd be holding on to it.
Why?
Yeah, a lot of times I probably am not really good about going to people and saying, I felt really hurt. But this is all about communication, really. And apology is just one type.
Mhm.
But to me, communication is so key because there's so many things that we don't know about what's going on in somebody else's brain and their heart. And we perceive that it's something, but a lot of times we're wrong. And so I think it is important for us to go to somebody and just say, I just really felt hurt. And that would clear it up a lot quicker, but I'll hang on to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I can, not all the time. And it depends on the person, like how comfortable I am. If I'm really comfortable,
Mhm.
it's like a best friend, a BFF or whatever, somebody really close, I could say, hey, I was really hurt but a lot of times I won't. I might stew on it a little bit.
Mm. I don't. I'm like, I didn't like that. Like, I tell my kids, like, if they say something, and they're so good kids, they rarely say anything. But if they say something, I'm like, that didn't make me feel good. I didn't like that. They're like, oh, mom, So I say it, And when you were talking, it brought me back to this story where I was kind of held, I had to apologize, but I was held captive. So I'm with a group of ladies, I have a group of friends, and we went out one Christmas a few years back. And, I'm like, I was trying to speak stuff into their lives, right? So I'm saying this, but the one girl was like, no, if you say it, don't say it. She didn't want to hear it. So, but I said it anyway. So some people accepted what I said. She just was upset because I said it. And then so the whole group decided that I would be kicked out of the group. Oops. If I didn't apologize. But what I said wasn't wrong. I didn't say anything wrong. What I said, in fact, was right. And so because it was true, they felt hurt about it. So they were like, you can't work out with us. You can't hang out with us till you apologize. And I cried. I cried some more. I was so upset because what I did was with good intention. It wasn't to hurt anybody. And it made me so upset. And I cried and I prayed. Me, I always prayed, cried. And then eventually I was like, okay, I'll apologize. And so like a week went by because I was struggling with this because I didn't say anything wrong, but they thought I did. So I said, okay, I'm going to bear the wrong for the right. I'm going to just say, I'm sorry. So I apologized. And then I was back in the group. Like we were in high school. I was a grown woman. Like, oh, wow. But then, I was back in the group and, they immediately let it go, but they was not going to let it go until I apologized. And I had to come to terms with, listen, you did nothing wrong. You said what you said. It wasn't bad. It was nothing to hurt anybody, but they took it like that, And I talked to my husband about it. He was like, I didn't have a gift to give because it was Christmas. So what I gave was some, words that I had gotten to give. So do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I gave them what was in my heart, but it wasn't received. And he said they weren't ready for that.
Right.
You did it at the wrong time. And so I had to think about all these things. And when I tell you I boo-hooed because, this really hurt me. But they didn't even know that. I never told them that. I just was still strong. And I was like, okay, I'll apologize. But I knew I was right. Have you ever been through something like that where you're just like, no, you were right, but they took it wrong and you had to apologize even though you were right? Anybody?
I mean, still acknowledging someone else's feelings, even if you're right and they still feel hurt, it still might be worth just kind of clearing the slate.
Yeah, I apologize, but they didn't apologize to me, but
that's
because
tricky.
they didn't even know that I was hurt like I
Mhm.
was so hurt, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't know that because I didn't say, you guys hurt me for not believing that, I would hurt you.
Right.
I never said that. I
That's
just
tricky.
took it and I held it and I apologized.
Mhm.
So apology is a thing, man.
I want to say something too, because I thought you were such a beautiful example of this recently as well. Something else I had apologized to Joan for via text, and she actually came back and asked me how I was feeling. And I told you I was feeling guilty, I was feeling terrible. And she responded with such a loving response. And it was such an example to me of, I know she felt probably a certain way, but chose to respond with love. And I was like, that's leadership. That is coming from like a higher place. And I was so
Aw.
impressed by that. And it was such a beautiful example that I wanted to share that story of how I felt receiving that, because I didn't feel like I deserved that sort of kindness. So that was very humbling for me. And it was also such a beautiful example of leadership. And so it felt like when I was going forward to maybe respond to somebody else, I would use that example. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Donna. I don't even
very
know
nice.
when or where, but
See?
I'm thankful that I was able to, I kind of feel like I vibe, our soul vibes. So I kind of know that she needed her space to just think about it and gather the facts and then get it right. So I kind of like, oh, you're going to be all right. But you ladies have any last tip for our listeners to talk about apology?
I think the new thing too is also to what Carolyn said about not having to apologize all the time as well. Sometimes you can respond with a thank you instead of an apology. So, example, I'm always late getting to teach my class with my seniors. Instead of I'm sorry for being late, thank you guys for being patient.
Yes.
I think that's
Oh, I
also
love
very
that.
empowering as well. Yeah, so
I
we're not
love
always
that.
in the state of like
yeah.
gremlin cringy. We can
Yeah.
also be empowered in that apology too. And then I think that kind of changes the
I love
That's
that. I love
very
that.
good.
Say that again.
instead of saying I'm sorry all the time, you can just say thank you. Thank you for patience. Thank you for listening
Waiting
to
for me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that also is a nice way to juggle all of this as well.
I love that.
I think somebody shared that. I read it on like Instagram
Yeah,
or
it's
something
definitely
recently, and I
social
was like,
media.
"Whoa, this is really important for me to know," because I do over apologize, and so it puts you in a different place, a place of like your own power, and when you have things you have to correct. Like I'm always late too. I'm always late for certain things, and I take on too many commitments sometimes. Then I have to apologize because I'm late and whatever. And you already know like where your problem parts are, but you don't have to constantly apologize for them. You can do your
Right.
internal work, but just come into it in a different
Right.
place. And I love that. I think it's amazing.
I love that.
Yes.
You know what your internal parts are.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I love that. Carolyn.
You know what I think? If you need an apology from somebody, practice asking for it. And if they don't give it, that's information. And I feel like I'm like a broken record today. Like information that maybe that relationship isn't what you thought it was, because I think if somebody came to me and asked for an apology, I would find a way, I think, to do it, even if I thought maybe I didn't need to. But yeah, I think, ask for it because I think it's information.
Listen, this is the Exchange, and I'm with.
Donna Hutchinson.
Carolyn Poiker.
Denise Cavalier.
And I'm Dr. Joan Coleman, and we are here to encourage, to uplift, to inspire, and to affirm you. You're going to be all right. You are going to be all right. Listen, we want you to check out our episode. We want you to share it. We are on CNJN TV. We are on YouTube. We are on CNJN TV YouTube's channel. We're on social media under Finding Your Own Magic. What's there?
Precious Botanicals.
And right on.
Right on. We're there. Look for us. And we also have a Facebook page called The Xchange. Check out our Facebook page. Join us. The shows will be there. You could comment. We have a conversation room. If you want to converse with us, we are there. And so we are The Xchange, and we will see you next time.